The good old corkscrew. It's on so many Swiss Army knives. I literally phased this thing out of my arsenal a long time ago. But it can be valuable. It can be definitely valuable for the woodsman if you know some tips and tricks with it, and I'm gonna show you one today. I actually think it's pretty sweet. I'm not gonna add one back in, but if you have this on, no fear. This is gonna work great. Now, all kidding aside, as I said earlier in the video, I really didn't phase this out. The knives that I recently acquired, like Swiss Army style knives, just have not had the corkscrew on. And it wasn't something that I ever thought, oh, that's one of the many tools on this knife that I really want. But recently, we were doing work here at the school property, and one of my instructors, Kian, was like, oh, I got to get this vine down, and he like MacGyvered this thing, and I was like, yeah, that thing, it works perfect. So I'm gonna show you that tip today. So what we're gonna look at today is how we can utilize the saw or the knife for cutting things that are out of our reach. So something that we can't reach. So let's say you're fishing in a situation and your line gets hung up on a branch and you have very limited hooks, or you don't have a lot of sinkers or a float, and you want to get that down, but you can't cut the whole tree down, you can't climb up the tree. How can you reach up and do that? Or in our case, we had to cut some vines out of a tree, so we did this setup. So it's really easy, and it's actually pretty cool. So I grabbed a nice long stick here, okay? And at the end of the stick, we are going to attach our knife. Now, a lot of people think that they need to use rope and twine and all types of lashings, but this is where the corkscrew comes into play. So what we're gonna do is we are going to take that corkscrew and we're gonna pick the end that we want up in the air, okay? So in my case, I'm gonna pick the thinner end. And all that we're gonna do is we are going to start to drive that corkscrew into our piece of wood. Okay, the same as if you were taking a cork out, right? Now, the trick to this is as you're doing it, you can see my corkscrew is actually coming out the backside. The trick is that you want to get the knife up against the piece of wood, okay? That's gonna help tremendously. The tighter you can get that, the better. Because I'm working with a thinner branch, I can't get it as tight as I would like, but it's gonna work just fine for us. Now we can come over to the other side and I can open my knife or my saw. And at this point, it is now attached. So, probably what you're thinking is, well, how stable is it? Well, it's actually, it's on there pretty good, okay? It's not gonna move up and down, and that's gonna be our sawing motion this way because the corkscrew is in place on the back side. One thing that can happen though is it can still twist. So if you don't feel like you have enough control or you start cutting and it is twisting, at that point, by all means, go ahead and put a little bit of rope or a lashing on here. But we get the job done all the time with it just like this. Really, really easy stuff. Let me show you. Okay, so I have my knife attached to my pole at this point, and I'm gonna come out here and I'm gonna begin sawing. Now, a couple things you wanna remember when you decide that you're gonna do this. Number one, we're only using a small blade, okay, saw blade, to cut branches. So it's gonna take a while. It's not gonna be the easiest process. But what is nice about this is that we're learning to makeshift something in the field. We're learning to utilize our tools to make other tools that we may need in a pinch, okay? So again, with that small saw blade, you gotta just take your time. Just get in that routine, that groove. And then just like that, my branch is down with a super nice cut on it. And that, my friends, is what bushcraft's all about. By taking your knife and making a tool out of it that you didn't even know existed, but now you do, right? So that's the fun part of it, being able to do these things. Again, this is not error-proof. That saw can twist, it can turn. You can have a hard time getting the corkscrew into the wood. I mean, all that stuff, but it's part of the fun of being out here and just being able to make this stuff up on the fly. So hey, another tool for the toolbox. Give this one a shot. At the end of the day, if your saw is twisting too much up there, just lash it and you'll be fine, but that corkscrew is gonna work really well to hold that on there initially. So, as always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com for all our classes, school, and merchandise, and until the next video, stay in the woods.